I've noticed this pattern around the release of the Newton Boys, Bernie, and now Hitman. You've said the minds of criminals are similar to the minds of artists. I think I could have been a good criminal. Art and crime are close. It's all getting away with something.
I am a good criminal. I got away with a lot.
Like?
Oh, just, you do things, getting your first films made. It's real gray market stuff. Like I don't know if it bends into felony areas, but, you do what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You borrow that piece of equipment, you give it back, but technically you're stealing. You cut every corner. You don't have any money. You have to, but you have to delude. When you're so passionate about what you're doing, you think it's justified. It's the same mind of a heroin addict who's robbing an old lady for her purse.
Right.
It's like I'm not a bad person. If she knew me, she would understand my needs,
mm-hmm.
that might be bad. I'm not trying to hurt. I just need the money so I can get it and everything can be okay with the world. I'm not a bad person. I knocked her over, but I'm not a bad person. So I was that same guy, Okay, I'm going to do this, do that. But so it's criminal,
So filmmaking is a crime of passion.
Kind of, yeah. Especially at that stage. But, and you think about it, the careers go similarly. If you think of the guys in organized crime, they have a good run. Like in Goodfellas, they have a good run there. But then they all go to jail for a while.
Right.
It's the same in art. So you get a good run. You get a few movies made in a way, and then something bombs, and you just got to go away for a while. Suddenly people don't want to fund your next film. You feel like, then you have to kind of scramble, regroup. You get out of jail, and then you start it again. You get the crew together.
You saying filmmakers have a good run when you've been on a run since 1989? That seems to be unending. I mean, there's some interruptions maybe, but...
you look at an 18-month gap or a 2-year gap, and it's like, that means I was trying to get films made and I just couldn't.
Right.
And that's, maybe they were too big budget for where I was or something. You figure it out.
When I'm thinking about those first two movies, It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books and Slacker, the visual language of those films exists in stark contrast to the MTV-ication that was happening in that moment.
Yes, those are underground fuck yous to the mainstream, both of those.
Right. And the way you use the camera, the way you're thinking about the camera, how did you begin to understand your relationship to your own visual language?
And in my mind, those films are polar opposites within that language. The first one, the camera never moves. Every shot is a lock-off. Every shot is a composition.
And you're also making it basically by yourself.
Yeah, so that too, I couldn't kind of create a nice dolly shot. There's a lot of movement within the frame. It's a road movie. There's a lot of movement in the frame, outside the windows and all that. But it's about being kind of stuck in a world of some kind. And there's hardly any dialogue too, which people would find rare, from me. So the next film, I said, well, what if this guy burst forth? What if he started speaking? And what if we let it was all about the interiority, that was a very suppressed movie, the first one. And it's like, what if he opened his mouth and started talking? And what if the camera started moving? So I'm really, that whole movie, trying to get this flowing feel. Also one take, I'm not cutting a lot, but I did want this flow, and I was able to, for a no-budget film, incorporate, a crane shot, a long Steadicam move. We stole a dolly, a lot of dolly track, borrowed. And, so it had this continuous flow. This
is the criminality that you're talking about.
Yeah, which if you give back, you didn't steal, you borrowed.
Right.
I borrow.
Temporary.
Yes.
Permission is
you grant permission to yourself. Come on, let's face it, it's just property. Who cares?
Yeah. I want to thank Best Buy formally for helping me make short films and allowing that 2-week return policy. Really,
we like that. I want to thank Kiko's for... I did get caught with my own little... the thing you plug in that counts your thing. I ended up with one, so I would come. But that's more, I'm doing that on behalf of the Austin Film Society, making flyers. So I have this parallel life to my own films you're talking about. I was also programming films and showing films and starting a nonprofit. So I had a really busy, fun life. It just didn't make one penny, but I was happy doing what I was doing. So, but to get back to the underground nature of those first two films, I think I had turned the corner like I think a lot of writers do when you start to view your own life, what's right in front of you as your own subject matter. Like if you could, that was worthy. And that's a big leap psychologically to take for any artist in any level. You know, you study careers and you see the early work of painters or anyone, and it starts off derivative usually. You know, even Mark Rothko, you see the recent, he seems of his time, the first 10 years. You know, it's like, and then you see him kind of find their voice. And, you know, you see it in painting, you see it in music, you see it everywhere. And so it's like, I was just burning through all this. And primarily in those short films, those 20 short films, I got out of my system so much of the MTV impulse, quick editing, you know, all these things, excessiveness that wasn't really me. I got to do a lot of things that I could just, you know, discard as, I don't really like that. It's not how I think. That's not what I want to do. But I tried it. So it's not really there for anyone to see. So by the time I'm doing the other things, I really do stand behind those first films as kind of, you know, they're full-fledged attempts for me to express something that was going on inside of me.
You made a documentary in 2019. I think it's called like A Day in the Office. And it was like a film you were forced to make by the Pompidou because they were doing this big retrospective.
Yes.
And they said, we need you to make a film about where you're at in your life.
I know. What an assignment.
Right. There's a quote in there where you said, I used to think the arts were some kind of calling, but now I think it's just the right therapies for the right conditions. I'm thinking about how you see filmmaking at this point. Like, is it a calling or is it a coping mechanism?
That's the revelation I really had in that. And over the years, you interpret your youthful passion and all this stuff as some kind of calling. You know, like, I'm really compelled to do this. And you feel chosen. You feel it's a great feeling. But you get older and you see, and you know everybody else who does it, you know, all your friends, and you kind of analyze, why do some people do it? Why do some people do it? You know, and I'm like, we're all a little crazy. We're all a little wired, you know, spectrum-y. Not uncommon in film directors especially to be, you know, I was kind of realizing, you got ADHD, dude. I was the undiagnosed generation. It's like, that's what allows me to focus. And I know so many others, they're, you know, OCD, Asperger's, all that. So I think that's the undertold story of a lot of artists. And so I was just kind of having fun with that, realizing that in myself. It's like, that's... Yeah, what I thought was a calling is just me. But what's the difference? You know, it's, you know, it's kind of, I just realized at some point, it's just the way I process the world, whether it's coping, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, it's a great way to go through life, you know.